All right, I'm just going to put it on this page now. I'm going to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Right. There's something that I'm thinking. I'm not sure if I explained it right. So, again, because I don't want you to think it's not what I'm saying. Right. It's what I'm saying is what I want to articulate. So, essentially, transportation teams and will be security teams. But in most cases, a security event will require a transportation team. Now you can drop the transportation vehicle if you find it doesn't need to proceed. And I guess you could actually have security teams and transportation teams. But essentially, the transportation team will be a transportation vehicle and two National Guard uh, bullet resistant at a minimum vehicles. And then they will move in convoy. And then there'll be a squad in there or whatever. Like I don't know how many those things fit. I've never been in one of those trucks. Right. But at least like 6 per, if not 8 per, or something like that. And that's gonna give that lane, that protected lane, that perimeter, so you can come out of the courthouse safely. So what we're looking for, instead of just like having to come out of the courthouse, be surrounded by National Guard, and then like a executive protection thing, right, and then kind of move through the crowd. What we want to do is get the vehicle hopefully close enough to the front doors, and if we have 12 to 16 people, they'll form a line on each side. So you'll have that open space, and it'll take you like, less than a second. Not less than a second, but very quickly you can just move through it and into the vehicle. So you got to try to hold the ranks and not let them break through. And that's what you do. You just take whoever it is and move double time into the vehicle, and then shut the vehicle doors, and then they go back to their other vehicle as they can. Again, the hope is that you'll be able to just drive off. Sometimes you can't, but again, you're also going to need a roving arrest teams. So I'm not sure how to do this. So I know how to do it. So if you get to a situation like San Francisco courthouse, arrest team has to be brought in. Now I know that could be people from inside the courthouse too. You just arrest everyone, anybody that impedes. Again, if you can't get it indicted, no big deal. You at least grab them and you threw them in there. You process them. You got them off the street for half a second. So again, trying to again, I realize when you're out there and ship breaks bad, that all these plans can fall apart, but that's the way to do it. You make your plans, you try to organize it orderly. If it falls apart, you still have some organization left. I mean, it's not going to completely fall apart. You might have to degrade into that executive protection type of movement, but if we can provide secure lanes for exit from the courthouse, that would be nice. And if you just keep arresting them, I guess eventually we should run out of people. Well, the fact is, if you charge somebody and the judge lets them go and they show up again, because the judge is going to tell them to stay away from the immigration building. I imagine. Hopefully they're doing that. They'll get detained. So you're creating a scenario where they would be detained. But again, they make choices in that. If they stay away from the courthouse, then they won't be detained. But again, you have to articulate that case to the judge and present the mood of what you're dealing with. And again, the idea is that's what the judges are looking at the San Francisco courthouse. That's an inability to enforce the law. The law does not start after they riot. Oh, okay, this is where, they're allowed to riot. No, they're not allowed to block you. They're not allowed to riot. That means once they're standing in your way, the ability for the president to enforce the laws of the United States is finished. He can't do it with what he's got. I mean, you could say to the judge, Your Honor, what if that was you? And like you get, it can be handled because when you walk out of the courthouse, Judge, we can always call a cop. So it doesn't matter that they're jumping you when you try to leave the courthouse, right? And because that's really what it is. Like Judge Breyer. Well, how would Judge Breyer like to be that person? They trying to leave the courthouse, right? So again, that's a fault. The what do they call that? The courtroom. The understanding in the courtroom is false. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. You're not required for that to happen. Once that happens, like if you couldn't get after all that battle, like at the end of that video, there's like, okay, they got into the vehicle and they all drove off. That's not enforcing the laws of the United States. It's being able to do that without getting charged at. That's the level that you're striving for, not to be beat up and battered while you're trying to take a detainee to a vehicle. That's the inability to enforce the laws of the United States. It's that simple. And that's when you can use the National Guard federally for what you're using. Great. So again, also again, the terminology using is incorrect. There is a psychological warfare operation being waged against ICE. It's militarized. It's psychological warfare. It's PSYOP. In some cases, spycraft. So again, that's part of it. Allowing that, causing that. Right. Can't maintain privacy in life. Believe me, this is all related to narcotics distribution. Believe me, it's not only about the immigrants. That's what they're fighting for. Narcotics distribution. Right. Because the mass number of immigrants allows for the narcotics distribution. When you reduce the number of immigrants, especially illegal immigrants, if you have somebody that's registered and all that, then you have greater accountability. And even slavery and prostitution, the immigrants are at risk with these types of systems. So once we get the system back to normal, we'll be able to protect the immigrants. And, young ladies can apply for au pair or whatever it is instead of prostitute 1 and 2. Right. In some cases, that is au pair, but maybe they may even be secretaries in this day and age. I'm not going to say who the judge is, but I was in a courthouse and I was, I'd stay late and do work. And so I'm there late one night and I come down to the parking garage. I never forget this. So the judge was, I can't even tell you the other part of it because it would give away who the judge is. I can't do that. And the judge is leaving with a clerk. And he looks at me and she looks at me with shock. I'm like, don't look at me. I'm thinking, don't look at me like that, please. I don't want to know anything. Because, you're probably doing the wrong thing. But see, I don't know if that's why they got rid of me also. There's a lot of reasons to get rid of me, right? But not the right reasons, right? Well, that judge, there's one thing in that judge's courtroom that happened, and he was nice to me about it. And I'm thinking maybe that's what it was. I wasn't trying to extort him or anything. Well, I won't even go into it because you'll figure out what judge. Somebody can figure out what judge. So I'm not going to go into it. But that judge was nice to me on several occasions, and nobody was nice to me actually. Nah, I'll take it back. Some of the judges, but Nickerson was nice. Wish I was awake. I'd still be there. I'd be like the marshal. I'd actually be the marshal if I was awake, but. And they love me, believe me. Right? I'd be like the best marshal ever. It's just, it's the same thing like Jesus, Yeshua in the Bible. No, was it no healer is respected in their own country or something like that. Right? Nah, I'd have been great boss. I just sleep too far in life to get anywhere. And then when I did get somewhere, they would just kill it. I mean, even spiritual places, they're just disgusting. Now, I'm not going to sit there while they bring kids around me and spell me to be attracted to a child. I mean, that's sick. I'm not even going to allow it to happen anymore. Right. And anyway, they said that they make up false statements no matter what I do. Right. Thank you, Larry. That's what they're doing. So you're told to go through it. It's just an investigation, but it's bullshit. They're witches and devils, and they'll take your whole life down. Because once they start willing you and cursing you to be attracted to children, you have to fight that with yourself, with your power. Then you don't have power to like move to Philadelphia and shit. And they know that. They're sicko pieces of shit. And kids have gotten raped and murdered off of federal operations, state operations, local operations, PI operations, but nobody's allowed to say anything because they weren't allowed to do what they did in the operation by using kids as bait. They use it as like what do they call it? A visual. Right. While they're trying to turn you on sexually with women, then they bring kids and they will you to be attracted to the kid. They're sick. I'll tell you what, there's a large percentage of missing exploited children are all about that. So they ain't real. They're fake. Now they got the system that somebody else like me should be running, right? Where I heal people that are, because we wouldn't have as much business. We'd be half as busy, if not quarter busy. See, they're not healing it. They're causing it. They're even out about it now. They don't just will it, they physically cause it. By saying it's good for man to be alone. So we could turn the man into a pedophile. That's 100% truth. So one of the biggest people in missing exploited children are devils. And they're forcing people into pedophilia, and they've gotten kids raped and kids killed, just like Omar Mateen. Somebody psyoped him, and then he shot up that nightclub. They didn't have it under control. Right? That guy admitted they psyoped him. But ever since I brought that up, they don't admit to it anymore, do they? Right. They don't admit to the psyop. Right. No, they said, well, they felt like smug. We left, like 10 months earlier. Well, either he was still affected by it, or those pieces of shit at the LDS church in Florida, and those pieces of shit in the police department in Florida that were dogging him and making him crazy in your absence that you put in and told him to do it. Either they were still on him. Right. Well, because the way Hashem God showed me the information. The way it works is this. It's a sexual abuse. It's a form of sexual abuse. This is how they make shooters and all sorts of stuff, because it causes violence in their victim. It's worse than cucking, believe me. I mean, because it's law enforcement cucking, which means they can say you don't get with a woman. They say you don't get a man. They even had sex with the women that I was just befriending. They'd block the friendship and then go off and have sex with them. Because they were like, oh, you saved me from that nasty man. And then, of course, who did the woman blame in the end? Because they're in their head, right? Me. Because if it wasn't for him, this guy wouldn't have sex with you. Right. Well, a big part of it is they're covering over for pedophiles. That's why they call every president a pedophile. They call every president a pedophile so they won't stop their operations. Because essentially, if you listen to what I say, what are they doing? They're actually protecting pedophiles and creating false pedophiles. So you're not going to arrest Jeffrey Epstein. You arrest this guy over here. Right? If Epstein had gotten in early enough, that wouldn't have happened. Guaranteed. Right? The deep state was bigger and all that. See, that's what happened. People like Epstein got arrested. people like Hansen and Ames got arrested. That's why the deep state took over. They're deep staters. Epstein was definitely a deep stater, but I don't know if he. I don't think he was like directly related to spies, but he could have been. I don't. I guess he was. The director of the CIA was his buddy or something for a while. One of the directors of the CIA supposedly, like just like Biden's, I think, was a friend of his or something for a period of time, or visited him or something. I think Epstein was set up to be that. It's hard for you to comprehend because your minds are so stuck on BS analysis. Like how could, like years ago everything worked better because like the CIA used to hire criminals because it didn't matter their background. They just, if you need them to do something, and I guess they still do kind of, but not as much as they used to. But I mean, not this is the weird part. Today everybody looks clean and checks out, but yet they're the people that are affecting their neighbors negatively. Right. These people, they give a shit about what their neighbor, hope their neighbor does well. You know, they just want, they committed some crimes and they were wrong. You know, right? these are like the beast criminals. That's what's around today. What we would call the beast. That's who the government's hiring, and these contractors and LDS people and all that. No, I have very little sympathy for these people. Right. Well, if you're part of the deep state and you use your kid as bait, and I'm telling you, they're willing up sex with that kid or sexual feeling with that kid, and your kid gets raped and murdered, if you say anything, then you end up having a life like the victim that you're victimizing. They'll do it to you. Oh, they know. They know. They may tell you they're testing somebody, but they know that it works because stuff happens in their life, and then they let them up. Right. Once they do dirty deeds for them, so they know that their kids could get. I guess their kids already raped, but well, that's the thing is, like my kids. If I didn't leave, my kids could have been killed or raped and killed. That's how bad they are. They would put people into my kids. They were already stalking my kids. I'd stalked my wife. I thought my wife was crazy. Like that cop in Florida where she killed her kid. That's a deep state hit. I guarantee it. Now, what are the conditions? Probably wanted him gone because he's an honest cop. Want to get one of their people in there. So that police department, it's not that big. It needs to look to make sure that there isn't already a dirty cop in there. That may be the guy that was going to take that lieutenant's position. Right. And then it could be somebody from outside too. Just get him out of there. Well, there are people. This is what This came up about me psychically that they were saying that we can't do it because Moore's here. We can't trust Moore. He would tell somebody if we did that in front of him. Right. So that's the other thing. They need a lieutenant gone so somebody that's actually deep state in the police department could actually feel comfortable doing something. The lieutenant might be honest. No, they murder people. They don't care, man. These people are sick. People on this planet are sick. That's why the planet will be killed. The planet will be destroyed. I'm not saying violently, but God will do it. Right. I mean, it might be violent. It might be a big asteroid hit the planet. That's all God has to do. Send an asteroid the size of Manhattan, hit it square. The planet will move out of orbit. The moon will move out of orbit, and it'll be over. That's simple. I bless it and praise it. No, if you knew what they did to me for the last 30 years, you'd feel the same way. Right. And actually 35, 40 years. It's just 30 years is probably where it really increased. Right. Well, because deep state was screwed. So early on, I got the idea that it used to run on NSA and CIA a little bit, but not like this. Right. That was like the only people that were really doing it. Right. So they made the billionaires so they could pay the deep state people and finance the operations. And then, if they get fired out of the government, they just, billionaire hires them or something affiliated with the billionaires. Right. That's why the deep state doesn't care, because if they get fired, they make more money. Yeah, they want to keep their job, but they don't care. As soon as they leave, they're, like, a good example is Shazak and McCabe. They got millions as soon as they lost their job. Right. I guess Comey also. Well, the bottom line is, again, I saw Kash Patel for a second inside. The FBI has to get back to its other mission. The other mission. So we need the National Guard. There is an argument to be made in court that we have high-paid analysts and investigators, or investigators that are also analysts, that need to be looking at data. They can't be out there doing that. And we need to do that because we need to do that. We can do both missions, but we need a National Guard. Well, because it's a breakdown of order. The law, in other words, the number of people that President Trump articulated being killed and wounded is not normal. That's not enforcing the laws in the United States. You see the mission creep. The laws in the United States says nobody is killed. That's what the laws are. The federal law in D.C. is nobody is to be killed. If people are to be killed, then it's a breakdown. Now, I know that's a big reach, but look at those numbers. Right. You're accepting people being killed. You cannot enforce the laws in the United States if people are killed, especially willy-nilly. You're not enforcing it. It's not able to enforce it. And we can't use the people that are out there all the time. We have to use the National Guard. And as far as a national police force, yes, we're allowed to have a national police force. We actually do have federal police forces. Right. And there should be a federal response force, but I think the House and the Senate would have to approve that. But you're saying, okay, the idea that the president is building, he's not running it. Now, he advises and he does order around, but the people running it are the directors, the same way that the people that run the other police forces. Right. So again, the argument where the president's building his own police force, no, not really. He's building a police force to deal with the situation, and he's the one coming up with it. But it's the FBI's police force, it's DHS's police force, ICE's police force. Right. Well, the people running it are career law enforcement. Are they a little bit of a lackey? Of course they are. But it's better than, AutoPen. Or maybe not. I don't know. So again, there's like misconceptions. That's the word. There's a lot of misconceptions in the courtroom of where the laws in the United States begin to not be enforced. And basically what's going on out there is at the cost of other investigations. Thank you, Larry. So we got to get back to those other investigations too. Venezuela, if you can afford an aircraft carrier, just so they can flap their wings or whatever they do with their wing thing when they come by. Anyway, right. Right. Well, again, Donald Trump can make a statement to the people of Venezuela to cease producing narcotics and cease transporting narcotics, cease producing narcotics, or you could become a military target of the United States because it is considered chemical warfare and has killed a larger number of people in our nation than has died in almost any war. Right? I don't know what's bigger, Ukraine or or fentanyl and heroin and all that. Thank you, Mary. I would do that. That's the only thing with that whole thing with the speedboat. I wish you would have made some sort of statement and to tell them don't try, specifically tell them don't try to export narcotics out of your country. You're committing acts of chemical warfare, and you have murdered, at least hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. I think millions, probably. Right. So you need to start doing that. That was kind of weird that you didn't say something like that. I think you'll be more successful if you do that. It's kind of like due diligence.